Yes, I guess as you can see, I'm in a hospital room for reasons that really aren't important to at least most of you. But anyway, Ralph, I'm continuing this video because people came outside to the visiting area where I was last night when I started. It might be in a few segments, so I want to get this done this weekend. Um, this video is going to be the links of this video going to be sent to several people. A lot of friends of Leslie's and mine's that we had in common that need to know the other side of the story because this is the most bizarre set of circumstances leading to divorce probably you've ever heard of. And it's going to be a more high quality video with all the events made that will be shared with everybody as well. The reason I'm sharing it with everybody is so that everyone will be interested to know what everybody else is finding out about rather than just saying, I'm not going to listen to that because nobody else knows but just me and he, and you can perpetuate whatever lie or whatever narrative it is that you want to promote. And this way, you're going to know that whatever it is that I say to people, that I say to you, other people are going to know, and they're going to hear the other side of the story. It's going to go to Ralph, that's Ralph Heinrich, Mark Snyder, of course, Bonnie and Ken, Gail, who else? Oh, the homeowners association. They need to know that things aren't exactly the way that they're purported to be. And well, just about any friend that I know that Leslie has talked to, including some of the friends that go to Mike's Global Grill, are going to get at least the length of this. Whether they listen to it or not, I don't know. But I'm hoping all the primaries will. And it kind of starts with Ralph. In December of last year, I was served with divorce papers. In September. As a matter of fact, September the 15th. Prior to that, I had no inkling of divorce, with the exception of a call that I got from Katie, who was me and Leslie's daughter-in-law, married to Leslie's son, who I knew was having problems with Leslie, and I wasn't sure if what she was telling me was true, but she said that Leslie was going to divorce me. And the reason she said was because Leslie's making her life so miserable that she thought that I could be an instrument for her to make her Leslie's life just as miserable as Leslie was making hers. And so she informed me that Leslie was going to divorce me and wanted me to financially do as much damage to Leslie as possible by using all cards, which I had about 3 cards I could have put hundreds, thousands of dollars worth of charges on had I had that proclivity. And even if I believed that I was going to get divorced, that's not who I am. I'm not on this earth to steal sums of money or jewelry or anything else. More of that's going to be discussed later. And so I didn't act on it, nor did I discuss it with Leslie because I knew that they were at odds. At one time, I did take some additional money from about $30,000 out of a joint account, and I put $15,000 back. The rest of it I needed because I just decided I wasn't going to go down that path. And the other money I needed to help finish the driveway and leave us, and just in case, a little bit that would be put back, but it wasn't much. And it was kind of fortunate that I did, but I didn't take all kinds of money. I didn't make extraordinary purchases. I didn't even buy a lot of airline tickets. Even not even buying a round trip ticket when I came to San Diego, because I didn't want there to be any question about the fact that I don't take any money. I didn't take any of Leslie's money in case that did happen, which it did. What I didn't know at the time was that Leslie was planning a divorce. Matter of fact, during the course she was planning this divorce, she actually had a conversation with me because she'd met with her former husband in Green Bay, and she said, he's saying that when we got divorced, that I was just a cold conniving bitch. And of course I agreed with her, that couldn't be her. But at the time she said that to me, she was already conniving for my divorce and already making the most horrible stories about me, the most unlikely character assassinations for someone like me that you can imagine. In May, we both left to fix up our respective houses for short-term rentals. She went to Seattle. She went to Sedona, and I went to Nevis. We went to Panama City the night before we both left, with tickets and plans to be back the following week. We spent the night in the Riande Hotel, and just in the morning that we're going to see each other in a week. And little did I know that was the last time I was going to be able to have a decent, private conversation with my wife alone. In Nevis, I found that had I come back, that workers weren't going to be working on my house as diligently as I would like. So I decided that I need to stay after consultation with Leslie. Later in the summer, we decided that we would make the house more accessible to her. So built a driveway up around to the back side of the house that came up to the front door in a way that there was just literally about 7 feet that she had to walk on level ground to go into the house. It was actually a pretty awesome design, plan, and implementation, if I do have to say so myself. And when she did come back to Nevis the second time after we were getting divorced, some of you went with her. You'll probably notice something. She didn't go up those steps that were there the last time she saw the house. It had a very convenient entryway into the house. That was because I loved her and I loved the prospective time we're going to be spending in Nevis. And I wanted her to be comfortable. Now, what I didn't know and what had happened was, according to Ralph, he told me that he heard Leslie crying one day from his place. He lived down below us downstairs for free. He'd stayed with Leslie for years. I figured out to the extent he's benefited about, a couple of $100,000 in rent that he didn't have to pay somewhere else. Leslie was letting him stay there for free, and then when me and Leslie got married, we continued his staying. We moved from a condo down there, but he continued to stay. He proved very helpful for us in a lot of ways. But he said that one day Leslie was crying, and he went up, and she just melted into his arms for a long period of time, telling him that she was having problems with me of one kind or another, and he vowed to protect her. And understand that what happens next and clear until now is right out of some kind of a book of mind control, unconscious racial activity that started right then. So the next morning, Mark went to a friend of ours, Mark Snyder, who Leslie had performed a real estate swap with. She traded her condominium and some money for Mark's house, which was naturally larger and really and nicely appointed And Mark's transaction was completed. He totally owned Leslie's condo outright, and he had all the money. However, 2 years later, Mark actually still owned Leslie's house, although she paid for it. Although she executed everything necessary to complete the transfer, it hadn't been transferred in her name. So, when the very next day, Ralph went to Mark and asked him to write a letter to ban me from my own residence that he was staying in for free, because Leslie had some problem with me that she obviously wasn't discussing with me and obviously hadn't been discussed before. That he wrote a letter as the owner of the house 2 years after the transaction, and there's no indication that I've ever received it. It was even requested by Leslie to keep me out of my residence from then on, and also Valle Escondido. So understand, Ralph went to Mark because of his intimate knowledge of our finances, knowing that Mark legally owned the house that Leslie paid for, and wrote a letter to the homeowners association to keep me out. He doesn't really have standing to do that, although he's the owner of the house. If you're the owner of the house and you're renting your house to someone else even, and there's some problem that happens in their house, some kind of a domestic problem, it's incumbent upon the victim of that problem to go to the DA or the police or whatever and say, hey, kick this guy out of my house, out of my residence. You don't go to the owner and ask the owner to write a letter. Had Leslie wanted to write a letter, believe it or not, she's an extremely smart, educated person. She had the wherewithal and the total ability to write such a letter herself. But no, she didn't. No, Mark did. Why? I don't know. He didn't call his old friend Lee Sullivan and say, there's some issues here maybe you should be aware of. Maybe we should talk about it. Maybe you should try to patch something else. No, that didn't happen. What happened is more like what might have happened in the South. The message was, there's the black guy. He's doing something to make a white woman uncomfortable. Let me ride and get the posse together, and the posse was Mark. And Mark, you do whatever we can, which was a letter, and apparently sent it to the homeowners association, which actually caused Ralph to keep me, or attempt to keep me out of Valle Escondido. On Thanksgiving, I actually went to Panama in hopes to get some of my possessions, well, actually all of my possessions, and ship them and have them gone. I thought it'd be allowed to go to the house. There's no reason I shouldn't have been. There's no threat to Leslie. There's never been a threat to Leslie. I was actually in Panama to get it. What I found was I couldn't even get a coat. I arrived on a evening that was cooler for Panama than normal and raining, and Ralph wouldn't even let me have my own coat. Apparently at Leslie's directions, I couldn't get anything from the house. Not even small personal items that was otherwise impossible for me to replace in Panama. There's nobody selling clothes big enough to fit me in Panama that I've been able to find. I didn't have a place to stay. My once best friend in Panama, we used to golf on Tuesdays, who had called during the summer to tell how much I loved he and his wife, Ken and Bonnie, wouldn't allow me to spend the night at their house, knowing I had nowhere to stay. And up until that moment, I thought that we were, just tight buddies. But when I called them in the middle of the summer to tell them how much I loved them and missed them, and they expressed the same to me, they already knew that Leslie was divorcing me, and they'd already chosen sides. In a divorce, you don't have to choose sides. Whatever the relationship of the married couple is, their relationship to each other doesn't necessarily have to do with you and your friendship. Because Leslie's got a lot of money, however, I think people chose along economic lines, and people that swore deep friendship for you, it withered away at the first hint that there may be an economic incentive for them not to maintain their friendship. I don't know what you call friends like that, but I find it really interesting that people that you love and trust can sell you out, and all of them knew how my relationship in Leslie was. So anyway, for that Thanksgiving, I go to a friend's house for Thanksgiving dinner. I get through the gate. I have to tell a security guard to physically, don't put your hands on me. I'm going to have dinner with a friend of mine, and I'm not going to go up to Casa 73, and that he shouldn't touch me. And he blocked my car, and so I got the pie that I was bringing for the dinner, and I walked to the house. He eventually decided he'd take me up there. Then they posted a guard outside. Now check this out. Understand something. I haven't done anything to anybody. They weren't allowing me to my own residence, but I wasn't even trying to go there. No intentions of going there. Just going to my own friend's house. They posted a guard outside of an innocent third party's house for the duration of the dinner to keep me away from my residence, which they had no right to do in the first place. And Mark said that he had to do that because there's a prohibition against me going to Valle Escondido. Well, it was issued by a person that did not have the authority to prohibit me from Valle Escondido. And they had no reason to. And he says, this hasn't happened to me. Well, ask him to show you somebody who hasn't done anything at all being prohibited from there. I think he's going to have a hard time doing that. And yes, I am asserting that there is a racial component. During one of the few discussions I had with Ralph, who, by the way, we were very good friends. Matter of fact, within that year, I stood next to him while someone pulled a knife on him, and I stood fast, and just my presence lending support, which could have been dangerous, although I didn't necessarily feel the threat, although it's a pretty good sized knife, about a 4-inch blade. But I'm standing next to him while someone pulls a knife on him. I'm standing with him, and less than a year later, he's stabbing me in the back constantly for no reason at all other than to get closer to my wife and my wife's money. It's really funny what money has done to all these people. Even to the point where there was an incident in Nevis, the island of Nevis, where our other house was, where I saw all these people that a year before we were all at a table enjoying each other's company and having a great time. They were all there ignoring me as though I was nothing, as though I was some kind of criminal. And I hadn't done anything to any of them, including my wife. Anyway, probably need to get a little more chronological there. So, that during the course of the dinner, Ralph decided to show up, and so he shows up. The gentleman who invited me over to his house told Ralph that he invited me, and Ralph said that I needed to have stopped at the gate and asked for a personal pass and him come down and pick me up, and because I wasn't a resident of Valle Escondido anymore, and technically I was a resident of Valle Escondido according to American standards. I know that's not the way it is there, but emotionally, everything else, everybody knew that was my house. But I didn't even attempt to go there, not one time. And anyway, he went to this gentleman's house to tell him that he should have escorted me up, and the gentleman told him that everybody here is from outside of Valle Escondido, and none of them had to adhere to that standard. Basically, that he was wrong. And he was wrong. You're beginning to understand a little bit about what I'm going to explain is unconscious racism. It was unconscious racism that caused caused Ralph not to call his good friend and say, you got a problem at home, but to go, and he's admitted to me that he is a nationalist. He said that I'm not a white nationalist, I'm a nationalist. You can weigh that the way that you like to. I think we all know what that means. Anyway, who went to another person who has very, I'm going to say, conservative and at least white nationalist sympathizing tendencies. I've heard Mark Snyder speak of two black people that he liked. One was Kanye West. After Kanye West said the little slaves must have somehow been okay with being slaves because they endured it for so long. Boy, was that wrong. He has since recanted that, but before he recanted it, Mark adopted him as one of his, favorite black people. And the other one was Sheriff Clark from Milwaukee, who was so conservative and talked like a black racist against other blacks to the extent that at one time Trump was considering him for a high-level law enforcement official in his administration. And I believe that he thought that would kind of backfire on him because he was so obviously against his own race in so many ways. The way he talked about things, he's not like a white racist, frankly. Those were the only two guys that I've ever heard Mark Snyder, only two black guys that I've ever heard him extol the virtues of, which I think is some indication of, how he thinks. Now, I don't think either he or Ralph or conscious racists. They would never claim to be racist. Although Ralph claiming to be a nationalistic, I don't think he realizes how close that puts him. But and nonetheless, it was when I got kicked out of there. It was like, well, this white woman's getting hassled by this black dude. Let me go get the posse. The posse is Mark, and Mark's going into action. Wrote a letter, and then it wound up down at Christmas, down at the Thanksgiving with the security guards, supposedly to keep me out of the place. It's like I turned into the Taliban. I turned into the caravan. All these things. You even had a wall that you can keep me out of. You sending people down to round up. Dude, these are racist activities, period. They just are. Evidence of, have you ever done anything like that to a white guy? Ralph, the same thing that happened with Mark, and Mark and Karen had a problem. Would you have treated him the same way? Now that you had that moment of pause when you thought about it before you came up with your excuses, you know that you wouldn't. Although me, it was just automatic, and you think that that's normal. It's not. You wouldn't let me go to my own house, but I believe you encouraged Leslie to take the furniture out of the house and leave us, thinking that, well, man, this black dude and all this expensive furniture, boy, you got to go get that furniture because he's got to steal it because he's black. This is what I feel you thought, at least on a subconscious level, because it took the unauthorized move. As a matter of fact, authorization was against moving anything out of those houses, and I'm sure you convinced Leslie to go remove the furniture because he's going to steal and sell the furniture. How racist of you. How utterly racist of you. The black dude's got some expensive furniture in the house. He's going to steal it. We got to go get it. How utterly, despicably racist of you, Ralph. And I think the court kind of saw through that stuff. There's a few things I think the court has seen through that you guys don't even understand. They are so stereotypical. And then when the furniture had to be replaced by you, in spite of the fact that I offered to relieve Leslie of that responsibility after the court ordered you to correct what I believe was a totally racist act and put the furniture back in, I offered to save her the expense of having you guys down there, and I told her that I would get the crew and we'd put the stuff back in, and it would be the same crew that put it in the first time, and that would save her a lot of money. She decided not to do that and pay the expense of getting everyone else to do it. Okay, that was fine, but then at the same time she said I was trying to be an obstructionist. How can I be obstructing it if I'm trying to actually do it herself? Because she doesn't talk to me, we can't work out little details because you encourage her not to. Ever since she filed for divorce, it was really hard to get private conversations with her because she was always being handled. As a matter of fact, for the first 2 weeks after the divorce, someone called me And as a matter of fact, there's John Keamy, who he said his name was John Keating, and he said he was part of Leslie's divorce team. He was the first person that called me. He may have even been the person that saved me and served me in San Diego. But he called me and said Leslie wouldn't be calling me for a few weeks so that she can adjust to the new situation. She's been planning it for months. What did she need to adjust for? She needed not to adjust. She needed to be separated from me, because that's a part of a typical, you know, brainwashing techniques that I believe the gentleman that wrote these techniques down was Frank Lifton. I'm not correct, but I studied it at one time. And that was one of the typical things you did when you brainwash someone. When you go to a cult, they cut you off from your friends and family for a period of time. Even when you go to the service, they cut you off from your friends and family for a certain period of time so they can start controlling your mind. In this case, Leslie's mind was controlled to the extent that I haven't even been able to talk to her privately. She always had to have a handler with her. And normally these handlers, like you, Ralph, had a financial incentive. Now you have direct access to being helped in the future somehow, like you have been in the past. She sold Leslie $200,000 with the underground bunkers. Of course, you got at least a $25,000 commission on. You made money off that. You sold her a golf cart for the same price you sold anyone else for, and the golf carts were less than $3,000. Was less than what you would have had to pay for 3 months' rent. You could have made her a better deal. You sold it to her for what you would have sold anybody off the street from. Rather than $5,000, which anybody would have paid, you should have sold it for maybe $2,000 or $3,000 out of gratitude for all the tens of thousands of dollars she saved you in rent. But no, you don't consider that. And you keep talking like you're helping Leslie out altruistic. Well, I never charge her anything but expenses. Ralph, there's been about $200,000 worth of benefit you've gotten from Leslie. Do the math at $1,800 a month. That rent's worth, even if it was $1,500 a month, for what? I've been with her for 5 years, and then you knew her for about 7 years. And you knew her a couple of years before I was with her, 7 years. So you need to figure it out. It's a lot of benefit, a lot of financial benefit. As a matter of fact, more financial benefit than I've enjoyed as being Leslie's husband. There's no doubt that when Leslie married me, she was married to a person that didn't have that kind of financial wherewithal. There's a different kind of riches that she found in me that I still have that made her want to marry me. And I wanted to marry her for riches that went beyond her monetary gain, but you guys can't see it. It cracks me up. Everybody tells her that that I've heard tells her that, well, heck, I married her because of the money. That's an insult to her, and it's an insult to me. It's as though you think that nobody would think that Leslie was worth that kind of love and devotion, were it not for her financial wherewithal. And that is so unbelievably insulting that I'm surprised that Leslie doesn't find that an absolute insult. And diamonds. Let's talk about the diamonds. Had I been the thief, there's 2 suitcases that we had that was full of $500,000 worth of gold and a little packet of diamonds. I could have taken the whole thing with the 2 suitcases, thrown it in the car that was registered to me, and left the country or gone anywhere. I mean, gold is liquid. I wouldn't know what to do with diamonds. So for months and months, I had access to that, and I didn't take it. I didn't do anything. It wasn't discovered after. It was discovered only after Ralph moved it over. Ralph knows what to do with diamonds, by the way, because he has something to do with the vault in there. He deals with people that deal in diamonds all the time. Not me. And so he gets one opportunity to steal those diamonds because it's so small, and although Leslie was right there, he could just take that little packet of diamonds and put it in a pocket and be gone. He didn't have the opportunity to take the gold, so that wasn't taken. I'm not saying he took it. I just know I didn't. He's the only other person that had the opportunity, and that was his only opportunity. And he had no opportunity to take it all. I had the opportunity for a long time to take it all, and I didn't. Why? Because it's not me. Leslie even defended Ralph by saying that she moved those extremely heavy suitcases herself until confronted with the physicality of that was impossible. Then she said Ralph helped her. The reason she lied to me and said that Ralph wasn't even there at first was because she didn't want me to be able to pinpoint someone else that had the ability to steal it. And her, because maybe of her unconscious racism, felt that I had to have done it, because everything she's done, she's turned me over to the racists. I've even told her, or what are people I consider to be racist, at least unconsciously. I don't think either of them would call themselves racist, but listen to them talk. Listen to Ralph talk about Panamanians. Bam. That should be your answer right there. All the time. Not just every now and then. All the time. So I've gotten accused of stealing. At first it was diamonds that I didn't know about until after I was already served. It was supposed to have happened 3 months before I was actually served. Nobody said anything to me about diamonds or anything else until weeks after I was served with divorce papers. Hadn't been to Panama in months. They discovered it during the first part of that, but no, it was kind of like they're covering it up to let everything out at certain periods of time about the things that I was supposed to have done that were being made up by people, including the fact that when she did file for divorce, she had a guy that described himself as being on her divorce team. His name turned out to be Keating, John Keating, and he turned out not to be an attorney at all. He turned out to be a criminologist. She had a criminologist on her divorce team to make me look bad. And actually kind of makes her look bad when I mentioned in court that she has a criminologist. To take someone with a sterling reputation like mine, I have a very good reputation in this life. And I'm known to have integrity, and she took the blood of my good character and just spilled it all over the place by turning me over to the nationalists and the criminologists to make me look bad. Now check this out. The court awarded me exclusive possession of the house. Now, although Ralph kept me out of my residence, when I told him not to go to my residence because I thought he might have been setting me up by planting some of the diamonds he may have stole in Nevis when he put the furniture back, I wrote him and said, don't go to my house. I wrote Leslie, don't bring him to my house. Same thing with Ken. Don't go to my house. I wrote Leslie, don't bring him to my house. So they're the only two people that are prohibited because somehow they seem to be complicit in this conspiracy to make me look like a thief. In spite of that, and I had exclusive possession of who could come to my house, meaning if I didn't give you permission, you were trespassing, they came to my house. They have violated, they've violated my personal property. They have trespassed on my land. They have interfered with my marriage. It's typical to mess with the homes of black folks. They've destroyed mine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll get you some water.
Thank you.
Oh. I see.
Sorry about that. It's kind of hard to get in and out of.
Okay.
Thank you. It's all perfect.
Where's he at?
He's in physical therapy.
I need to shoot him. All right. Oh, I have a question.
You know, there was a Dred Scott decision, and paraphrasing it, it said in the 1800s, the original court, the Supreme Court, was started in St. Louis, Missouri. And a small courthouse is framed by the big arch. If you know a little about the history, that's one of the arch. The reason the arch is there, it actually frames that courthouse, which is a mile away, looking from the river. It's really something. Anyway, that was where Dred Scott first went to court. And the paraphrasing, the upshot of that case is a black man has no rights. The white man is bound to respect. And that's been said by many to be the worst judgment in American history, the most disgraceful. And everything that represented has been represented in my case. Ralph totally destroyed my marriage because, not that I didn't have problems before, but people can normally get together and make up. Oh no, ever since that first time he found out that Leslie had some gripes with me or somewhat unhappy, he made sure there was no way that could ever be put together. Because now, he is the person that is the most trusted by her, and he was trusted by me for a long time. But man, when he saw that opportunity to be a wedge, to get other people involved, to get Bonnie and Ken involved, to search my stuff, to look for stolen stuff that may or may not have been stolen, wasn't absolutely not stolen by me, but may have been stolen by somebody else. Some of it actually, maybe even by him. It is very typical of the kind of disrespect that court said that blacks could endure, and they are now thrown back way back another 100 years, and totally embodying the Dred Scott decision in their dealings with me, and it's absolutely despicable. He wanted to disparage my character so much that he even had Leslie bring a 24/7 armed guard to Nevis to protect her from me. Now understand, those of you know me, I'm not nearly as good a shape as Ralph is. I'm overweight, I'm shorter, I'm older, and he has a security force. He's taller, a lot leaner, a lot better shape. Why would he need somebody to do that? It was a prop, and that prop is used to just disparage me, period. There's no other reason for it. To the extent that in Nevis, people were asking, what did you do to her? What must you have done to her? I want to say I don't do nothing. Why would she have an armed guard? Because it's a prop. It was a prop to paint a character of me that has never existed anywhere outside of what has been painted by Ralph, primarily. Ralph and the criminologist and John Keating, who misrepresented who he was to me. And it was only through the due diligence of me and my attorney, primarily my attorney in this regard, to discover that he was actually a criminologist. Because I have such a good reputation and they needed to make me look like a bad guy, they had a criminologist on their team to make things that would be just normal look as though they were criminals. As a matter of fact, he was my contact person for Leslie for a long time. And when I found that out, naturally our contacts got a little more terse. But some of the things that happened were, I told him that I would like to visit her in Panama, and he said, well, we don't want you to visit, something to the extent that we don't want you visiting in a foreign country. And I said, why? He said, because you can do anything, and we don't know what we could do about it in a foreign country. Now, this gets translated in the court documents as Lee says he could do anything to Leslie, and nobody could do anything about it. Just a lie, just twisting words. A lot of times that happened in my court documents. As a matter of fact, you're going to see that I warned Leslie because of a friend of ours that got shot in a home invasion type robbery, and because of a lady that got accosted not too